Good afternoon. You're watching Businessworld Live. I'm Jes Delos Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Friday. No reprieve for the index today. Shares tumbling yet again to a fresh low this 2021. The main index now at 6,258.71. That's after it sank 0.4% today. That stretches the sell-off to 6 straight days. The local bourse has slid 3.5% since April 30. Which, as you can see right here in this chart, again, like what I mentioned earlier, this is a new low for the index here this year, as represented by this blue broken line here. Shares retreating despite trade deficit thinning in March to $2.41 billion from $2.71 billion the month prior and $2.73 billion a year ago. This as exports grew 31.6% year on year to $6.68 billion, just due to a low base from a year ago and by strong demand for electronic shipments. Imports, meanwhile, increased 16.6% to $9.10 billion. Growth in exports and imports expected to continue primarily due to low base effects from 2020. But sentiment remaining weak as offshore investors continue to dump local stocks. It's now 26 straight days of net foreign selling. As you can see in this chart right here, net sales today at 637.6 million pesos. Investors staying on the sidelines, even as more vaccines arrive in the country. Earlier today, 1.5 million doses of Sinovac arrived. Galvez did say yesterday that they are expecting 7 million doses in total to be arriving this month in the country. That includes 1.3 million doses from Pfizer to be delivered directly to Cebu and Davao. 2 million shots from AstraZeneca will also be arriving tomorrow. That's going to be from the COVAX facility. We did get reports as well earlier today that you have the government's czars reportedly telling Senate that they need 90 billion pesos for vaccine procurement in 2022. But despite those positive developments on vaccine arrival, majority of stocks still on sell-off mode today. Looking at our leaders and laggards here, you have Metro Pacific, the day's worst performer, down 2.9%, now at 3 pesos and 96 centavos. The stock correcting after net income surge to 7 billion pesos, but core income still falling by 26%. You have 4 other stocks here ending the day lower by more than 2%. That includes SM Prime, Metro Bank, JG Summit, and Pure Gold. But among a sea of losers, one stock had a stellar outing. That's ICTSI. Quite obviously here, as you can see, is up by 5.4% today. They're now valued at 135 pesos and 40 centavos a share. That's after net income climbed 51% to $90.1 million, as revenues likewise grew to 16% to $435.6 million. That's on the back of strong volume across Asia, America, Europe, and Middle East and Africa. And while we're in earnings, might as well take a look at how Robinson's Land fared for the first 3 months of the year. Net income, at least quarter and quarter, showed an over 200% improvement here to 2.9 billion pesos. Revenue likewise also increasing at least year on year by 35% to 16.7 billion pesos. The improvement is on the back of reduced restrictions and increased economic activity. A couple of their segments actually showed some growth for the first quarter of the year. That includes their commercial and their hotel and resort businesses, but revenue from their residential units still down due to delays in project completion. RLC numbers came in after close. Let's see how investors will take in those numbers by Monday. But at least today, the stock ended in the green, up 0.5% to 16 pesos and 50 centavos a share. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. The Bangko Sentral warns that a major cyber attack could affect the stability of the country's financial system. BSP Governor Ben Jokno said financial institutions should reassess their spending on cybersecurity now that more users are shifting to digital transactions. Jokno pointed out that in 2020, the BSP received about 20,000 complaints from financial consumers, most of which were related to fraud and unauthorized transactions. Recognizing that a major cyber attack may have possible contagion effects, the BSP said it will also do its part in ensuring the resilience of our cyber payment and financial systems. Factories continue to pull back from producing goods, with the volume of production index slumping to 73.4% year on year in March. This downturn was faster than the contraction of 43.3 registered in February and is considered to be the worst performance in 9 months. That's according to the PSA. The agency said the drop in VOPI was brought about by the contractions in 5 industries. These include the manufacture of coke and refined petroleum products, which declined more than 97%, as well as production drops in machinery and equipment, tobacco, basic pharmaceutical products, and textiles. That's despite the huge increase in volume production in fabricated metal, electrical equipment, rubber, and plastic products. 7 million doses. That's the total number of vaccine doses that the government is expecting to arrive this month. 1.5 million have already landed in the country earlier today, courtesy of Sinovac. How much of a confidence booster is this for the private sector? Let's discuss that with a private sector representative to LEDAC and former PSEi president, George Barcelon. Good afternoon, George.
Good afternoon.
All right, so how has cooperation been, at least between the government and the private sector, when it comes to vaccine procurement? Have private firms been given more leeway to import vaccines on their own?
Well, uh, last month, the development wherein the private sector are allowed to procure their own vaccine is a good, positive move. But unfortunately, worldwide, there's a shortage of vaccine available. And as of now, we're very happy to hear the various sources that are coming in. As you mentioned earlier, Sinovac will be having a 1.5 million doses just coming in, and Pfizer. And lately, I've heard that the Russian Sputnik has also arrived, although not in big quantities. But having said that, we know that the vaccines are available, and the private sector, of course, is waiting on how the acquiring of this vaccine for the private sector. How do we log in? The priority now is still on the frontliner, the health care taker, and the senior of our society, senior members of society. Lately, the government has also given priority to the frontline workers, and I think that is very appropriate because the workers are the ones that are outside, that are out commuting to go to work, and it should be good to have them protected as early as possible.
But that's
So, the big
interesting, Sir Barcelona.
department, yeah.
It's interesting that you did mention that, but at the same time, while the A4 priority group has already been allowed to be vaccinated, the thing is on the ground, it's still the A1 to A3 group that's being vaccinated.
Yeah.
What then does that say about the speed at which vaccines have been rolled out in the country so far? And the 7 million, does that in any way spark confidence, or is it still this at least a reflection of the speed by which the government is procuring vaccines?
I'll be very frank with you. I mean, the procurement and the deployment of the vaccine is less than ideal. Okay? We're just barely hitting 1% to 1.5% of the population. And we're talking about achieving herd immunity of about 65 to 70% within the year. So that's a very daunting task. Uh, if you look at the numbers, by hopefully by early part of the third quarter, we have to really go on the mass inoculation. Okay? And that is when I say mass inoculation, you're talking about 220,000 to 250,000 a day, the number of people to be inoculated for us to achieve, hopefully by the end of the year, 60 to 70%. So that's a very challenging task that the DOH faced. And you mentioned about the arrival of the Pfizer. At this point in time, we would be willing, I mean, we should take any vaccine that is donated or that we can get our hands on. But the logistic of the Pfizer is very challenging. The temperature requirement below 70 degrees is something that the government has to plan ahead. I've heard that the government has made arrangement with the logistic company to do all of this. And we in the private sector are more than willing to help the government through our various chambers. Yesterday, we had a meeting with MMDA Chairman Ben-Hur Abalos regarding how the private sector can help in accessing some of this vaccine that we know that are arriving. The private sector has gone on board on the two private sector initiative, one by PSEi Concepcion on the AstraZeneca, and the other one, Moderna, which was through the ICTSI. These are not yet scheduled to arrive, but we would think that once it arrives, those who went on board should be able to log in and get their shares. By the way, when I say get their shares, not that they can do the vaccination by themselves. They have to go to accredited centers from DOH. So we're
Okay,
looking forward to that.
good thing that you mentioned that as well. But first, before we get to that, I want to ask as well, realistically speaking, when do you see the A4 priority group getting vaccinated?
Honestly, I would think that it's going to be the latter part of the fourth quarter.
Latter part of the fourth quarter. That's quite a way away.
When I say that will be October, November, yeah. Because the bulk of the vaccines coming in originally were planned for August, September, and October. The 20 million dosages that are coming in per month, there seems to be a bit of delay. So if that moves back to September, then you're talking about the logistic needed. I would give a target of probably sometime in October, November.
And then at the same time, you did mention about the vaccines the private sector has procured. Do we have updates on that? When can we definitely expect the arrivals? Majority, if I'm not mistaken, the original target at least would be at the third quarter of the year.
Yes. So far, what I've heard is some of the AstraZeneca will be arriving soon. Now, I'm not certain whether this is part of the initiative of PHOE on the AstraZeneca or this is part of the COVAX vaccine donations. But still, the quantity, if you think about the number of people that needs to be inoculated, is still on the low side.
Now, Sir George, at the same time, you have the Finance Secretary, Carlos Dominguez, saying that he is backing a tie-up between the government and the private sector. I know you did mention earlier, storage is one of the key components here that the private sector can provide. But what other services can the sector give to government? Something, of course, that the public sector doesn't have capacity for.
Well, there are lots of unknown, especially with the recent strain of the coronavirus. Okay. The spread seems to be faster, and the strain seems to be deadlier, as what we see from other countries. So the private sector facing this situation has gathered, like in the Employers Confederation of the Philippines, they will be having the National Conference for Employer third week of June. And the title or the theme of this convention is Reform, Reboot, and Recover. So on the reform side, we do have to work jointly with the government because the pandemic will still be around with us for more than what we would like. So all of this, like working from home, all of the hygiene protocol, and plus the fact that the field health should be really there to absorb all the necessary support. I've been asked questions that if people get to be vaccinated and they have adverse effect, who takes care of them? Okay, I know there's 500 billion pesos that is budgeted in the Congress, but would that be enough? Because lately, I personally have encountered my employee who got infected with the COVID vaccine, COVID-19, and was hospitalized, and the bill is in the millions. It's staggering. It's
Mhm.
staggering. So these are things that I think the government has to be prepared for, and also the private sectors. Many private sectors, of course, we encourage our workers to be vaccinated,
Mhm.
but we have to admit that there will be some side effects, and we might have to extend the sick leave, more days for the sick leave for them. And employers are willing to do that as long as
Mhm.
we need to be protected to rebuild the public confidence for
Mhm.
us to really re-inject life into the economy. And life, when I say life, it means not only trade and commerce, but education and social life.
Okay.
Education has been hit badly. Thank you.
Very quickly now, Sir George, quick answer from you. Is Metro Manila ready to revert to GCQ this month?
Uh, we are, in the sense that I'm not talking about numbers. I'm talking about the collaborations between the government headed by MMDA and the private sector. Okay, we cannot expect that the infection rate goes to an ideal numbers of below 1,000. That's not going to happen. But what can happen? What should happen is that we coordinate the between government. What are the areas that needs to be looked into? That needs to have more stringent mitigation. But what are the other areas that we can open up and allow certain normalcy? And the collaborations between the NCR Plus, I heard, has been going very well. And we always make ourselves from the private sector. I'm sure not only PCCI, EcoFelix, but other business organizations are more than happy to help out to get shifting to GCQ. Although it sounds like a broad brushstroke,
Mhm.
but we have to look at this, granular, in a very granular manner. Okay? Where we can open safely, we should. Where we should not, we should bite the bullet and hold on.
All right. Thank you very much for those insights. Again, some level of optimism there, saying that Metro Manila at least is still ready to revert to GCQ for this month. Thank you very much. Private
Thank
sector
you.
representative to LEDAC and former PCCI President George Barcelon. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And those are the biggest stories this trading day, May 7, 2021. Catch Business World live again next week at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jes Delos Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.